Recover what it was like to move as an infant, coordinating arms and legs going opposite ways. Your heart figure eights. And why figure eight? Cross section of every energy field, toroidal dynamics. Let me show you how to enact it simply. You breathe in and do a little bit of peacocking. Have the middle of your chest go out and up. Breathe out and have the middle of your chest go down and in, turtling. So do another breath in, peacocking. And having suppleness come into the sternum is crucial because we usually lock there. We talk about opening the heart and we keep it closed in a kind of embodied performative contradiction. So this helps to soothe an opening there subtly. And then as you breathe in, the next time go up and around clockwise with the middle of your chest down and in as you breathe out. And then up and around counterclockwise as you breathe in, down and out. And you continue to move. And if you continue synchronizing with breathing, interfered with the least amount possible, you notice that you start to go patiently, noticing this at each moment, gently feeling this at each moment, responding to this each moment, and even maybe enjoying this moment to moment pleasurably. And notice we just covered the 4 ways energy clusters as we think, feel, act, and desire. So all of this starts to synchronize effortlessly in recapturing the synchrony of synchrony, dance of dances, toroidal dynamics that harmonizes with all it is. And within just a couple minutes, you may notice that you tend to get balanced. You may drop a little negative energy. And the crucial thing is not so much emphasizing rocking on your hips as having the middle of your chest have the fluidity to come up and around and down and up and around the other side. There's a wide latitude for success for something like this, so you don't have to work too hard at it, but enjoy. And as you do that, let's just ask for all the sources that people of various backgrounds draw on in an endeavor like this, to melt through whatever may be in the way of getting more with yourself, each of us and all of us together in the larger project, and all the earth and cosmic sources that come into play to bring us more wise, loving, potent joy in the process. And have this be something that you can occasionally do on your own during the course of the time we meet and practice afterwards. And I'll also put a link to a recent Facebook Live that gives you a 10-minute accompaniment if you want. I'll put that in the chat later. Thank you for your forbearance, patience, and the gift of being able to contribute this way.
Thank you, Artie. That's beautiful.
So blessed.
So yeah, you know, part of what this is all about primarily is actually embodying the feminine more in our culture, in our way of being on the planet. And so it's ironic that it's a bunch of guys working on this project right now, but the embodiment of our feminine sides is really critical, and that's kind of part of the conversation that I had with Artie that really invited this kind of practice to start us off briefly. So thank you all for being here. I hope you all had a chance to review the first meeting we had, which was definitely packed on short notice. So that was amazing. A lot of energy there, a lot of excitement, and kind of the proposal was made to form a facilitators guild of people who would be going out into organizations and teaching those organizations, preferably startups right now, because it's much less complicated to work with startups, to embody vulnerable transparency from the very, very beginning of their formal operations. And the theory is that through vulnerable transparency, we will enable a greater holopticism in our economics and our socioeconomic system to see who's doing what, who's giving what, who's taking what, how the exchanges are flowing throughout the system at scale even. and give us the ability to algorithmically identify certain types of behavior. And the theory goes further that rivalrous behavior is in fact the thing that it would be useful to identify. And that is when people start competing against each other to an extent to where they want to beat down the other in order to win. They want to win at the expense of another, as opposed to a more friendly competition where we're just trying to create the best, most effective and efficient outcomes. A good competition is looking for efficient and effective outcomes of loving kindness and vulnerable transparency for all life. That's a great competition. Let's compete if that's what we're doing. When that competition turns into trying to win over another person or another group or other life, that's when it turns into rivalry. And the theory is that the theory further goes that resistance to vulnerable transparency is inherently rivalrous behavior. If you have something to hide, why is that kind of question? Now, that's a hypothesis. But through this whole enacting and bringing forth of vulnerable transparency through Protocol.Love in a scalable, technical, distributed ledger means by which anybody can see what's happening in the ecosystem, we can get a much greater insight into whether that's true or not and really test that theory. So that's what's exciting for me. And so largely this conversation, I want it to be an organic conversation. So whatever's present for you guys, let's talk about that. I'm going to open it up here in a minute. But the goal is definitely more along the lines of, rather than talking about all the specific implementations of how Protocol.Love can change the economics and socioeconomics in a fundamental way from a technical perspective, like I'll talk about that for hours. Trust me, we're going to have tons and tons of time to talk about all the technical specifications of how that can happen, right? The Facilitators Guild goal of what might become the Facilitators Guild with a group of us here is that we would actually go out and sit with organizations, hopefully in the startup phase, and ultimately any organization though, that wants to start to embody vulnerable transparency and embody a more feminine sensing way of being within the organization, both internally within the people who are contributing to the organization, and then how the organization is nurturing and sensing to the greater ecosystem that it's a part of. Now, that's what's missing, I'd say. And if we're a broad swath of what's missing and what goes bad in our socioeconomic system, and how we're approaching many, many limits that could look towards the evolution of life, destruction of society for the increase of chaos in our socioeconomic systems, I think is really largely a result of this kind of thing, and of a masculine journey we've been on for some 10 or 15,000 years, perhaps, as a human species, to see how much we can achieve and how much we can control the earth and nature, and see how much we can actually conquer, and that it's kind of like a vision quest in a way. Like at the end of your vision quest, you've gone to your absolute limits, and then you come home to return to the community and embrace loving kindness again. And so I think that's kind of the theory behind what all this is about for me. And with that, I'll open it up for any comments, questions, anything, any ideas as how we can bring this forth in the world. And thank you all for being here.
I'd just like to say that I'm not instead of rivalrous, it's competition can be rivalrous, but what makes it toxic is the zero-sum rivalry where someone has to lose and another person has to win. So I just wanted to clarify that. And I just had a conversation that I took good notes on using Miro about the divine feminine. So I'm going to search for that and post it in the chat notes.
Yay. Thank you, Lauren.
We also talked about what that means to release the divine masculine as well.
Excellent. Yeah, because balance is what we're really seeking. And so when we talk about bringing the feminine in, we're just saying there's probably more feminine nurturing and sensing needed in the world so that we can achieve balance. Not that, we're looking to swing the pendulum the other way. Although we're probably seeing some of that happen in the world right now. That's okay. The balance, as long as we're seeking balance at the end of the day, I think we're good. And you're in terms of rivalrous, yeah, I mean, that's what I intend to say when I say rivalrous, is when you're trying to win over somebody else, it's turned bad.
Yeah, that's really good. Actually creating maybe a new list of new words, new definitions for words, bringing a higher vibration to the old, terminologies, belief system, and different words that we use. Maybe, recreate a new one, new definitions. I used to have a list. I'll share more. I'll find it, but I'm finding that certain words and their definitions no longer match based on how our consciousness are recognizing the deeper meaning of it, the higher meaning of them. When it comes to rivalry, it doesn't have to be unhealthy. It could be a healthy. We could create a healthy version. We may even change the word completely. If the meaning doesn't serve us anymore, maybe create a different one, a new one.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that it's a big decision to make, and when you're sharing a message with the world, do you attempt to change definitions of words that people probably already have a definition for? I've noticed a barrier there. Capitalism is one of my favorite examples. Capitalism means so many different things to so many different people that I've found that if you use it in a discussion, you're immediately going to get nowhere, because half the people in the discussion think it means one thing and half the people in the discussion thinks it means another. So I always I tend to think we might be better off in just inventing new words. And so like we kind of did both with currency so far. We just spelled it different, current-c, which means see the current in the flow of exchange that's happening. So we kind of used the same word and kind of changed it simultaneously. That's a cool trick. Hey, Jonah, thanks for joining.
Yeah, I think new words is good.
New words.
Hello,
New
everyone.
words.
Sorry for being tired. You found the link. Sunrise here. Aloha.
Aloha, my friend from Maui. We're just doing an open discussion right now. And we'll have tons of time to talk about the technical specifications of Protocol.Love in coming times. Right now, I think I'm hoping for the conversation, although I'm totally open. I'm hoping the conversation goes more into how we can organize as facilitators, create standards together, create ways of creating standards, in fact, right? That we would propose, these are the ways to operate with vulnerable transparency in the world. And then further, from those standards, have a group of us be going out in the world and actually teaching and sharing those ways of being in group operations. Welcome to the video, Charles.
Ray, just in the group, just FYI, I'm currently working with some folks in Hollywood. They're more like outside of Hollywood, really, because they've worked in the field for over maybe 50 years. And they created their own film production company. So what we're doing is we're creating movies and TV series right now, writing scripts on how it might look like, how humanity will bring us from where we're at to where we're going, where we need to be. So, almost like product placement of this project, can be in there. What it takes for us to go from where we are to where we need to be, that process. I have characters, everything from prophecies to working with different indigenous elders, bringing that into the story, and what that looked like about the rainbow children and the coming together of the people, is bringing that story into that medium. So just giving a heads up for people with I think already you have maybe something that we can connect with, chat about, and whoever else is interested, on the side note, we can chat about that as well.
Great, Charles. Thanks.
Humphrey, that was Humphrey. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, storytelling about all this is really a critical piece. And so, for me personally, I'm on the ground here in intentional community, a community called Arcadia, which is near Kingman, Arizona. And we're actually implementing all of these protocols now. We're actually using Protocol.Love to build out this community, which is made up of, we've identified 6 to 10 collectives, ultimately 10, but we need to focus on one at a time and move ourselves forward in an organized manner. So ultimately there's 10 different operations, 10 different circles of stewardship that happen here at Arcadia. And so we're actually doing it here. We're building a network of other communities that are doing it that we can interact with. And then of course we're sharing the global standards, or at least the ideas for global standards on how everybody can begin to interact in new ways that ultimately just make it a more cohesive system that's a win for all life. And of course the first step proposed by this philosophy is vulnerable transparency. It is the key to the rest, because it is through vulnerable transparency when we stop, we have the ability to see what's happening and who the players are and how they're operating. We can start to make more informed judgments about who we want to be in currency flow with, right? Who we want to see our current of exchange happening with, and that will allow the greatest number of effects on the marketplace to ultimately create an omni-win, create the truth and love that is inherent in the evolution of the universe. That's the theory.
Ray, I'm curious about your definition or maybe some more expansion around vulnerable transparency. Like what is that? I know obviously the currencies is like a place to start with that. As far as like what are we looking at and specifically my ideas or my question is around like how do we find the balance between sharing enough that it's useful and oversharing so much that we're generating noise that's not useful in the transparency process.
Yeah, I never thought about how there could be noise. That's an interesting question. I don't see it right off. Like if it's actual data about things that are actually happening in the world, I can't see how it's not useful. But vulnerable transparency is a broad subject that goes back to ancient teachings ultimately, and it means it's something that happens within us in our psychospiritual selves. It's something that happens in our emotional level. It's something that happens in interpersonal relationships, one-on-one relationships. And then, of course, socioeconomics is really interpersonal relationships at scale. And it's a practice of being true with what's real, right? And real with what's true. And being in a sensing place to know that from an inner knowing, right? And so the vulnerable part when you get into socioeconomics and you get to the fact that we are playing game A right now, which is a rivalrous game of attempting to get more power and money at the end of the day. Even when we are sure that we've created a group of people that are out to do something different, their stated goals are 100% that we are not in this for the money. We see repeatedly that because they're working within an ecosystem, a framework of business operations and exchanges that are of this rivalrous nature, they get sucked into that always. Like really, I challenge, let's find the examples that make that untrue, because we have a lot to learn from those examples, right? So the vulnerable part is knowing that when you are surrounded by people acting rivalrously, that by exposing your chest, by exposing your heart, they can that much more easily stab it. In the trust, in the faith, in the goodness of love and the evolution of the universe is what certain brave souls will choose to take that path first. And so that's the vulnerability part. I mean, it literally is, you know, putting your life and livelihood at stake, perhaps. But that's something I feel very called to be okay with. For my personal journey, I had an experience in life that forced me to be completely vulnerable in every way. And it was the most freeing experience it was just life-changing. I'll never be the same again. So I'm a fan, you know. Yeah, there's one other piece that came up. So this does not mean being weak. This does not mean maybe it means something like being meek, but it does not mean being weak. The formula that's proposed, I don't know if you've had a chance to read my article that goes into all this in depth, Cody, but I'll share it with you.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's called A Digital Protocol for Scaling Loving Kindness, and that was kind of the launch of Protocol.Love. But one of the messages that's made clear there is the winning pattern for kind of the socioeconomic exchange pattern, or what we do in relationship to each other, I guess is ultimately what it is. The pattern of how to be in relationship with others. If you break it down into being nice or being selfish at a fundamental level, we can detect this pattern. And there was a computer game made to simulate this. You could either choose each round to be nice or to be selfish with the other player. You would take rounds and you would do rounds with just one other player. And so the winning strategy turned out to be nice first, be provocable, but be forgiving. And so you can describe exactly how to do that with a really few lines of code. But that was the winning strategy. So the be provocable part is also critical. It does not mean be weak, right? It means we are kind, we are nice. We are looking for the omni-win at all points in our interactions. It's our job to seek the highest level of omni-win we can possibly seek and create. And standing for that principle. And if somebody wants to come around and not even be willing to expand their depth of view, their holopticism, into the effects they're having, right? I think that's the most we can ask of people. Would you at least just take a look to the greater complexity here and in the ecosystem that you're part of, and how your decision might be affecting things in ways you're not currently aware of? When we see that happening, that may be it may be time to take a provocable stance there, you know. And
I'd love to provoke and chime in here and offer something simple.
He's Artie.
An echo from the early 20th century. There are no things, only events. That's Whitehead in response to the quantum revolution. Has to do, avoid the abstractions and get to, this is about relating. And when you're relating, like you care for, and what you want to create in the relating is what's going to be valuable. And what's going to be valuable is always going to be mutually enhancing. It doesn't work any other way. So with the intent to come up with abstractions and define them and try to apply them, we get into dead ends because we're in some non-experienceable reality. Whereas in the relating, we have this empirical touchstone of how we actually are. Be nice. And if somebody fucks with you, you know, you got to counter. But then, you know, if they come around, forgive them. Good.
Thank you, Artie. And yeah, that's kind of, so being a tech guy all my life, just to relate to that a little more, I kind of saw the extents early on into what we can do with abstracted, like technological, like advance. And I, you know, I realized I learned how to be human in my 30s, you know? So this was after programming for 20 years, you know, professionally. And so, what I realized though is we can use the technology to enhance the relation. Don't build technology to build the systems. You use the technology to help build the relationships, and let the relationships build the systems.
Foster relating.
So specifically, to get a little technical about that piece, right? Anybody feel free to jump in and shut me up. I'm just going because I feel like there's a little space to fill here. But there's a thing called Dunbar's number. Anybody know what that is?
There are a series of them, right? 5, 15, 50, 150?
Yeah, he theorized, right. He theorized about 120 to 150 people was part of his stuff that above that you couldn't really maintain relationships. You couldn't have a deep understanding of who the other person was and what they're about and what how they act, and get a sense of perhaps their level of loving kindness, their level of selfishness. Like, these are kind of things that we all inherently track in our relationships. And above 120, 150 people, you can't track that anymore. You can't keep track of all that. So we have to then rely on intermediaries. We have to rely on the telephone game to tell us things about people, to tell us things about organizations. That creates a whole complex layer of politics and marketing and all of these things. So in theory, if we can just increase Dunbar's our ability to be in relationship with people and have a knowing and meaningful relationship, an understanding of who the other players in our space are. If we can just increase that by 20%, say, we can perhaps exponentially, that multiplied throughout the ecosystem is an exponential motion, right? So we can actually have a huge effect by just being able to increase our ability to be in relationship with people by a small percentage. More theories that drive all these ideas.
Who's not talking who would be good to call on?
Well, hi, Joel. Glad you could make it, my friend.
Hi, nice to see you, Raymond, and everybody else.
Yeah, buddy.
I was a little late today.
Yeah. Cool. How is it up?
Fascinating topic. Oh, it's beautiful in Bend today. It's a little sunnier, but still pretty cool out. Kind of a cool spring day. Birds are happy.
Yes, we hear the happy birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Joel, in case people don't know, has come on and really helped catapult this whole Protocol.Love thing to the next level, just by his mere energetic presence. And I'm just so honored to know that anything I'm putting out in the world is attracting guys like Joel. So, but actually, I could say that about most of you on the call. I know a lot of you and feel the same way. So.
Yeah, well, since we're segueing into that before we go on to the next topic, I mean, that's why I'm here, Raymond, is, in gratitude for the work and the white papers you've taken your time and energy to infuse and release to the world, and your involvement in projects like HoloChain to understand the techniques behind what so many of us, when living in community, understand. The importance of sitting in a circle, the importance of holding the stick in communication, the importance of transparency, and allowing things to arise and emerge organically, and really moving with that flow. And yeah, so that's why I'm here, is to learn as much as I can from all of you, and to play a similar role to what Ray has been doing, which is connecting our communities, our companies, our currencies into an economic framework that the world not only recognizes, but wants to infuse their loving kindness into. And facilitating that flow of currency is what I feel this group is, of course, forming around in concept, but also in capability. Of each of us asking the question of, what is a facilitator? How do I facilitate loving kindness emerging in my company or my startup or my government agency, or what I really wanted to do? And here's a way to connect the dots and bring others along the journey. And along that journey is just like everything else in life, self-realization. And someone who looks at a holochain and is like, I don't know what that is. Well, of course we don't know what it is. It's not actually in reality yet. We're creating it. We're creating the holographic reality of our intentions, of our loving kindness, of our spreading of joy and our gifts. And then we're just layering a fabric together and weaving it so that we can look at it and recognize it. And if we wanted to use technology, put it to work for us, so we can continue to share in each other's gifts and the stewardship of our planet. So that's why I'm here, is Ray's done an incredible job of setting the tone and setting a lot of the foundation, and really excited to be working with all of you, hopefully on an ongoing basis, and learning about each of you. And I see several faces I don't know today, so happy to continue to listen and see what's going on today. So thanks.
Yeah. Welcome, Reiki. Thank you I'm so glad you can make it, my friend. And Athena, good to see you as well. And we have a couple other new joiners. If you're feeling shy, but you did just want to say hi and where you're calling in from, that's awesome. But you're welcome to say anything else. Introduce yourself if you'd like.
Hey, Raymond, it's Brandi Vail.
Hi, Brandi.
Hi, I just thought I'd chime in for a little bit. Humphrey invited me, and I am the founder and co-creator of CETA Society. I see a couple of names on the call right now. We all have been working in parallel, right? And we're now coming together, and it's really powerful to see the common denominator, which is currency, and at the end of it, which is governance and self-governance and transparency and community, I mean, at the core. So I thought I would just say hello. Know that I'm looking for partnered groups right now to grow these networks. I work with Impact Advisory Board. We're just growing our network about 50 to 100,000 to 200,000 membership groups overall, so that our technologies, once they come in together, can really make a massive shift. So I'm interested to hear more about Holochain, and Ray Potter is one of the advisors, as I mentioned. I know that he speaks highly of Holochain, and I know that we're doing a lot of stacks and integrating a lot of the currencies currently into more of a social economic pool. So I just want to say hello and know that I'm here, and I'm excited to be here.
Great. Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. And yeah, let's have a conversation, because I mean, that's the level of, curating, that you're doing there that could really benefit from and really show the world how Protocol.Love can benefit that kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah.
I want to add that a second contribution I want to share in this and other such settings is how to mainstream something that's known among energy healers on the subject of transparency. We know, people like us know, in principle, our energies are always touching everybody else. But how to ground that empirically so we can read quantitatively what's actually going on is a skill that can be learned fairly quickly, particularly by people here who I can tell are all streaming very prominently from this chakra and are old souls to varying degrees. That's something that can be learned fairly quickly by sensitive people. So being transparent is something that, of course you can hide and you can mask and you can dissemble and everything else, but someone sensitive and discerning and develop the skill can pick up on an awful lot of stuff that isn't spoken outright. And that ought to be something that we share, so that we're already open to each other. You don't have to have opinions and judgments. You can check empirically what's actually going on.
Yeah, which is,
so that's something to discuss another time.
Artie, that is not just a little something. That is at least 50% of what we're doing here, right? So Protocol.Love is not just a digital protocol specification. It is that, and that's my piece, right? But when it comes to embodiment, when it comes to being in council with people, these guys like Artie, I'm stepping aside. I'm just here to help that get started or whatever. And all the magic.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Yeah. So it's human interactional.
I'll just say that on my YouTube channel, I'll put it here, I have 3 clips sharing. I call it subtle energy literacy. I'll put that also here, where you can go directly to the first of the clip. They're not done professionally yet, but I give this away. This belongs to everybody.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'd love to see a lot of open sourced techniques. And so to be clear, we are basically proposing a facilitators guild, where the facilitators' job is to go into startup organizations, help them set up with governance and economic structures that work, currency flows that work. But just as importantly, or more importantly, most importantly, is that they're like the HR department that's there from day one, right? To talk about it in corporate terms, right? The HR department is as important in the setup of your business and governance and your foundational documentation, right? And that HR department is also going to be with you then as a consulting agency, right? That's perhaps what this Facilitators Guild could be. We would continue to go and be available to help resolve conflicts, move through tensions, enhance capacities, enhance, just help the groundedness of the organization in every way. And yeah, this kind of technique that Artie is bringing is invaluable to that work. And again, I think that is the kind of work largely these are the conversations I want to have on these calls. I think that's what we're angling Facilitators Guild to be about.
Hello, Raymond. This is Athena Lund from Boulder, Colorado.
Hi, Athena.
I just wanted to say hi and
my Facebook buddy.
Yeah, we just seen each other a couple of times. I really enjoy the platform, the ideas here, and thrilled to be here.
So glad you're here. I know somebody's got something they think they might have wanted to say or ask, but now's the chance.
Ray, do you have any timeline in regards to the development? Any projected, like what's the next step, or when would the next step be? Any ideas on that?
Sure. I mean, so the dance here is, I found that when you're promoting open source, co-creative, co-governed solutions, there's this fine line between it's almost like if you think about something too much, you already lost because you haven't so I always want a presence that anything you hear me say are just the ideas I came up with. But if the energy is the same and the idea is different, that's great. I'm on board. Let's play, right? So yeah, but I have thought about all these things. And so basically what I'm seeing now is there's a co-gov collective, Collaborative Governance Technologies, that is a tech company. It's really a tech company. And we're going to steward the Protocol.Love holochain protocol. We're going to steward some core interfaces, perhaps steward some teams of people who want to contribute other core interfaces. I don't think we would do that within the collective. We do that in relationship to other closely held collectives. We would, perhaps it's a stewardship role over the Facilitators Guild. Perhaps it's just a reciprocal role. That might be more appropriate, actually. So the Facilitators Guild is what we're talking about here, which would be the people in the field telling us if the technology is doing anything good, because right, we need that feedback mechanism, right? That this technology must have that feedback mechanism, or else it's not going to be fundamentally different. And it has to have that feedback mechanism in a way that hasn't been quite achieved. And that's what holochain allows to happen. So that's one of the subtle things that people aren't quite seeing yet, to what will happen when holochain people start to understand and to start to use it. It fundamentally changes software development. It's DOS. It's the C programming language. It's like the thing that it's just ridiculous to do it any other way. Because everything we're doing is about our relationship with each other. So when the parts of the relationship are hidden behind data walls, we cannot be as collectively intelligent about how we are in relationship with each other. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's so like blatantly obvious to me at this point, and I think that's the thing that the world doesn't quite see coming yet, like how that fundamentally shifts everything. And so our job is just like sharing that in this way through organizational habits, human organizational habits, human interactional technology. So it's all a tech company. It's just half digital technology and half human interactional technology. Interactions at all levels.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And excuse me, I'm just learning a little bit. So is this a tech that you're using currently that has profiles? Or are we're starting at the conversation point?
Yeah. So profiles is kind of handled at the Holochain core. They've solved the sovereign digital ID thing by doing it on a distributed ledger. So it's called distributed key infrastructure, distributed private key, and DPKI, distributed public key infrastructure. Yeah, which was renamed Deep Key. And that's your digital ID with you hold the private key, you can identify, but it's you can also shift your keys using it. So we don't have the problems of a lost key and your whole identity is gone and your wallet's gone and your money's gone. So we have ways to get through that. But fundamentally, and that's why it's good, it's on a distributed ledger. It's like public key. It's like pretty good PGP for email. It's similar technology, but it's instead of a decentralized server network, it's a distributed network of peers that are all both clients and servers. But anyway, to answer your question, they handle that identity layer. On those identities, each Holochain app will basically be able to share data related to those identities, as well as write to probably central identity standard that will emerge, right, organically. So that's all kind of there. And it's the thing where there's lots of ideas about that right now, about sovereign ID.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess my question is there a website I can go to or an app that is for Protocol.Love currently?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
so
sorry, I just got the text to get in here, and so I'm in here. So
nice.
I'll
yes, totally. Protocol.
Sorry,
Protocol.Love is the URL.
Got it.
Yeah.
What we're doing in our community is we are using a lot of templates right now that are open source, and we're looking for partners also that have established templates so that it just becomes a part of the ecosystem, so that we can 10x what we need to do right when people have a great idea. Our tagline is from idea to life, and so we really help foster those ideas, of course, with the same ethos as you guys have, which is common right now as the uprising of this new economy is getting really sticky. A lot of these tools are going to be needed, and I see that with the new ventures, some fiat capital coming in and then changing that over for licensing, and using of the applications, and of course then having use cases that are substantial, and if they aren't working, then we go in there and as advisors help. You could be an advisor and we could come to you because we need help to help really shift it a little bit into the right nodes and into the right systems, because some of these great ideas are ideas until they actually have foster communities that can use the technology. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yes, I'm a yes to all of that. But far be it from me that we would come to me. We would definitely come to like a guild or something of experts, and that's kind of what this conversation is. And clearly it's here, it's happening. We are a guild already, whether we want to be or not, right? So then that's actually kind of one of the next steps, is actually acknowledging that fact in writing. And that's when a collective foundational document becomes a thing we can do. So we can actually, model the process of what we might teach to others. And so the proposal is to form a small group to do that of, probably no more than 8 people, but there's still a couple spots if any of you would consider committing your time. The ask is that you would commit to 8 hours in aligned 8 hours with every other person that would be part of the process. So we're all going to be present for the full process. Certainly doesn't have to take 8 hours. But that's what we commit to. And so if that's something that you feel called to do, please do reach out to Joel or I right away. And if there's significant interest and the energy feels right, we'll move on that as soon as next week, perhaps.
Hey, Ray, I have a question.
Yeah.
And maybe it's for everybody, but I'm going to address it to you. Do you feel it's worth it maybe to take a few minutes? It's 9:50 with the group that's on now to maybe get a couple of questions answered in the realm of what you just stated is we are already protocol facilitators. That's why we're on this call. We're already doing this in the world. We're already weaving and figuring out how to open up templates and align templates and open up streams of communication and value and current and flow. And the question is becoming more and more, well, how do we capture this flow in a net that is reciprocal for everybody in the community and outside the community so that we're not relying on this centralized system wherever we are in the world? A lot of that then gets related back to digital currency, because as a sovereign nation, we of course could figure out the energy crisis, and that energy crisis we could print some money, and then we could buy a bunch of energy or materials to create new energy devices. So as individuals in building these collectives, understanding parts of the digital technology, the kind of the fabric that makes us possible. I've heard a couple questions, in the last couple of sessions about, well, what does it mean to create a currency? How does that really work?
Right.
How long does it take?
Yeah.
And so there's like a story that I was on a holochain call this morning to give a quick update on when are things launching. They're still really interested in what everybody is doing in the world, and they're still not launched yet. And they're still really patient about what Raymond was saying about this will fundamentally change all of our projects for one reason only. If we think about it, we're all building websites. We're all going to YouTube and pushing out videos. We're all building Facebook groups and Messenger groups and WhatsApp groups and Slack channels and all of these forum channels. All this stuff is now everywhere, and all these Google Drives and all these drives of information and sovereign documents that are being collaborated on in smaller circles all over the world. And many of us are going into other circles and saying, man, if they just had what they have, then they would be right where everybody else is. Oops, there goes my phone. And so part of what Protocol.Love is help bring a solution to that aggregation, so to say. And what Protocol.Love is in that human aspect, which is what the guild is about, is embodying that and then learning about the language and the communication and the tools of how to connect that into this greater ecosystem so that people can have an app on their phone and look at the balance of their currencies and know that they're completely taken care of, especially when they look around maybe where they're living now and how that environment has reflected what their bank account says, their bank account, so to say. And so maybe if we could go through a Q&A really quick around any topics that have risen up in the call that are specific. And also say that holochain is fundamental. We don't all have to understand it. There are lots of developers and development companies trying to figure out how to put developers to work, like at CoGov, to build out these models of society around trade and agriculture, economics, sustainability, permaculture, you name it. And how do apps contribute to the data sphere so that what maybe Brandi is doing has open and available access for everybody to contribute to in a safe environment, private environment, but still open, so it can be superfluous. No matter where Brandi goes, other people could also come behind and continue the flow instead of having to try to pick up where someone left off. In the work that we do in consulting and the work that we do in showing up when problems arise, they become more self-evident in this way. And so consulting or helping groups and communities, facilitating them, eventually just becomes there's nothing else to do, because there's just enough permeation of people are facilitating this type of flow of a sharing economy and understanding the economics of digital currency and how that relates to fiat currency. And so those might be some topics that we can cover a little bit later. Or if there's questions that people want to ask about any of that stuff, maybe there's some value in that.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Like, great. That was a great introduction to the things we love to talk about, of course. That's more on the tech side, on the CoGov side. So please, there's room for discussion about the team building that's happening over there as well. And let's have those conversations. Reach out. Let's do it. Reiki, if you're present and you wanted to share anything about the great work you guys are doing over there with seeds, I think this is will be a great opportunity to hear about it with this group. And if you're just kind of listening in, maybe you're multitasking, that's okay. You get it.
Yeah, multitasking. I could definitely make an intro. First, I love everything that's happening here. My name's Reiki. I'm really wanting to just add whatever perspective I can bring to this guild that's forming here. I call myself a facilitator. I'm working at Seeds in Haifa. So Seeds is trying to set up what we call a regenerative financial system. So it's how do we make our financial and economic systems regenerative by design rather than degenerative by default as they are today. And we also part of an organization called Haifa, which is building collaborative, essentially decentralized payroll solutions. So people can set up their own organizations, distribute voice and equity amongst members, set up roles. So it's kind of like if you took a decentralized autonomous organization and plugged in holacracy into it. Cool. Some of you guys might know the stuff that we're doing. I definitely don't want to derail this. I feel like whenever I get going, I have to go for like 10 minutes to make any sense.
Well, no, I think
I can just add wisdom wherever I can and, help this emergence take place.
Yeah, great, man. And thanks, guys. I mean, really, so Telos is what they ended up building on because the Holochain is 2 years behind schedule. And Telos, we have a transition plan to Holochain that we're in discussion with Reiki when the time is right and the energy goes that way. That's a very useful part of the collaboration happening here. But yeah, they're modeling it out. Telos is the best way you could build a similar environment. It's blockchain based, so it's at the end of the day, but it's a working system for now. It does not have the full unenclosability, right? But what they're modeling there, they're actually doing it now. It's happening. Whereas we're kind of in the more meta, because what I'm saying with CoGov and Protocol.Love is that this is what I see with the whole Seeds project is this specialization, and it's a beautiful specialization. Everything they're doing there and the energy of Reiki and the team, amazing. So that's what I love. I love to see that happen. And then so the Protocol.Love kind of works in a meta to that to say there's other projects, specific projects happening like that, right? Let's make sure they're all interoperable at this fundamental level just through vulnerable transparency. And so it's just a beautiful dance we're all doing here. About 3 minutes left. If anybody has any, hi, Glau.
Beautiful. Yeah, thanks for that, Ray. I'll just jump in one more second. So to chime on what you were saying is we are running pilots right now. So a lot of the tools that we're talking about playing out with right here, we are doing that. We're setting up organizations. So if either of you want to be part of that experiment as well, then we can make sure that we're cross-pollinating and bringing those ideas back and forth. I mean, yeah, sometimes we feel like there's this competition in the space, and I really try to mend that down. I mean, I love Holochain and everything they're doing, and we would have built on them had they been ready. But anyway, so I don't want it to make it seem like you're choosing sides, but it's technology that exists to help us serve our goal. And if it's something you guys want to be part of on that side, then we can play around on that side, and feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful dance. It's actually the way it has to unfold. I started doing that kind of work in 2016. Like, what does the interface look like, right? I started building the interfaces, and actually, this is how people are going to interact digitally, and it's going to be great, and it's so fun to build this. And I realized this is where the juice is. Building those interfaces and building the systems and doing the things is where all the actual juice is. And so, got more thinking along the meta lines, and of how we let all the juice happen and all the interfaces get built in all these organic ways, but make sure they all work together seamlessly on the fundamental protocol. So Protocol.Love just proposes the absolute basic things that anybody can be transparent about within their organization to accomplish that. So
and I'll tag on to that too. Like, since we're talking a little bit of tech here and Reiki, that was awesome to hear about kind of what you guys are doing for the group. And it's about interfaces, and that's even where Holochain as an organization is even kind of still continuing on the dance of saying just build interfaces. When this network is ready, who's at some point not want to power all of their stuff for free. Who's going to not want to do that? How many people are going to want to continue to pay other people to host their websites, their apps, their platforms on these other things in these certain ways when even we can offer it for free? So there are some, I think, parts to holochain that are still so far out from being, that as long as we continue doing what we're doing, and we're doing it in the ways we are doing it, we're facilitating these common transparencies.
Right. Well, just Joel, sorry, just specifically on that, right? So what Protocol.Love will help you share is, for instance, here's the currencies, here's our equity currencies, here's our fiat currencies, here's our influence currencies, here's our impact currencies, right? You define those in your collective foundational document. If one of those currencies is a seed currency that runs on the Seeds platform that Reiki's building, then it points right over there, and we can build interfaces that integrate directly to that. All Protocol.Love does is allow you to say that you are using a Seeds currency. So we have that interoperability layer.
And that's what's going is, yeah, it's like what I was going is what you were saying about the technology not being ready and, you know, making decisions, you know, with Helios or other projects and Telos or Haifa, is it doesn't really matter. Because at some point, if we have these common transparencies, it easily maps over when a bunch of developers come by later on and build all the DNA on the holochain. And that's all that needs to really change. There are some fundamental flows that will change, but we've already been doing the mapping. If we can find these common protocols to be doing this in tandem with all these different projects, not just, you know, not as a way to centralize any of it, but a way to open up the different levels and layers and dimensions of communication between them. So
Right.
yeah, focusing on interface.
Yeah. Yeah, and Reiki, you know, you can confirm if you want that I believe the seeds are planted for exactly that transition, for us to be able to use your front ends and have a holochain back end when the time is right. And so, looking forward to that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about weaving all the networks together, right? I mean, everyone who shares this vision, it's about playing and collaborating and cooperating. So we're here.
Amen. Well, that's a beautiful way to wrap this up, unless anybody has anything else quick. The Glow, did you need? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to drop in for a second, and I came in late, but I just wanted to mention that, like, you know, Seed has been coming through of like all these different channels of like here, and also with Kelly's vision of like how we can actually incorporate seeds into, you know, receiving seeds for different various things. So like with Gaia Protection and with Unite.Earth, because it keeps coming through seeds. When I was talking to Vishal about Unite.Earth, like how we can collaborate with weave these networks in with the holochain. So it's really nice to hear this. And what I've been thinking about is like how we can basically build this community from the ground up, because what Sasha was saying yesterday in our call with Kelly was like, we just have to believe in this currency, and then it makes it real, right? So, you know, having like receiving seeds for doing beach cleanups and for all these different things, and like building this in into the network is just like, if we can build this community like how we had Karma Tribe of like a gifting economy, but then also add in the seeds.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would be the next step of like reactivating Karma Tribe, so that people are helping. Then receiving seeds at the same time.
Yeah. That's really the way to wrap this up, right? Just like that remembering there that, you know, at the end of the day, thank you, Glow. I was going to say that a different way, and then it left me. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you. And yes, totally.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. If you're interested in, you know, getting involved more with us reach out to Joel or I.
And we'll be on another Zoom later today.
Yep. Bye, Jubilee.
Yep. Thanks, everybody, so much.
Hallelujah. Aloha.
Aloha.